Hello malt mates, I'm Ralphie and welcome here to the Whisky Bothy for review number 1137. And this is the concluding series of whiskies that I'm reviewing that I bought many years ago, put them in the stash, and then years later, in this instance 12 years later, I've brought them out to open them and enjoy them. Some of the reasons that we buy for the stash is that we've got enough bottles open and we don't want to open any more because we'd just be drinking more, and it's quality, not quantity, that matters. But now and again we see something which is a bit of an antiquity, and when it's gone we're really not going to see the likes of it again, because it symbolises and represents a certain generation of bottling. And just a few reviews ago I had that situation with a Talisker. I am so reluctant now to buy any Talisker at all, for the simple reason, just like yourself, I just don't want to be disappointed and feel that I've cheated myself by buying the wrong product. Talisker used to be great. Nowadays, not so much. If you want proof of that and you want to waste your money, buy a bottle of Talisker Skye. That will show you, and compare it, even better, compare it to a Talisker from yesteryear. Say a standard 10-year-old from the 1990s. They're incomparable. There's so much difference, because that's what happens with whiskies. Now, this is Brora 30-year-old. Brora, a Highland, East Highland distillery, north of Inverness, and sometimes called Old Clynelish, and sometimes called, we're not quite sure which distillery. They're both side to side, and things get higgledy-piggledy. When is Brora Clynelish and when is Clynelish Brora? Answer: when it suits the bottler. If you've got the provenance of the delivery notes and you have the history, and you know, you're able to do the forensics. These things happen. This is the 2010 edition. This is bottle number 2151, which tells you this isn't a single cask. This is a reasonable batching. And it's bottled at 54.3%. And before I go any further, you may be interested to note that I bought 2 bottles of this, and the first bottle I opened and reviewed, I've noted it down so I don't forget, in review number 406 in October 2013, 12 and a half years ago. I really enjoyed it. Dusty, old tasting. You know, the leather armchairs, the bookcases, the old books, all these references. And this is not a brand I review very often in the channel, and I'm just about to nose it and taste it and tell you all about it. But just before I go there, I've reviewed this 5 times, Brora as a brand. 2 of them were independent bottlers, one from Duncan Taylor in review number 103, and then review 339 from Signatory. Both were, in my opinion, okay, but nothing to write home about. Then I reviewed again in review number 406, followed by 711 and 729. So, Brora has been scattered throughout my reviews. It's worth noting I paid about £250 for this bottle, which is a lot of money, but I could see at that time its historical relevance, and These are now, if you're trying to buy them second hand from a specialist retailer who sells hard to find whisky, you'll need probably about £3,000. So why did I open the bottle, not just sell it and spend the money on other excellent whisky? Well, it cost me £250, and whisky's made for drinking. Cheers. This has been put way up in a pedestal. Too high on a pedestal. It's perfectly competent, engaging and good whisky. But it's not about the Brora. It's about the casks. It's the casks they used. They didn't use fresh, beefed up sherry casks. They used restrained sherry casks. And you get this immediately on the nose. Light, soft, fruity, summer's day, gingery. More suffused and restrained form of sherry. The nose is very interesting. Typical of these old whiskies, it softens and slightly sweetens over time, so please be in no rush to consume these old whiskies. Seriously, I'm not kidding when I say that I've been at masterclasses back in the mists of time where I've seen people finish a glass of this in 10 to 15 minutes. Smack their lips and say, oh goody, I've tasted such and such, I've got the bragging rights, and they've never even experienced a quarter of what that whisky has to offer because they're in far too much of a rush. There's some lovely, I would call it Japanese orange blossom. It's slightly lychee tropical orange blossom. Very nice. Tiny drop in the first taste. The alcoholic strength on the bottle, 54.3%. Tells you immediately that there wasn't a lot of evaporational losses from these casks. That in turn suggests that this Brora and the batch of Brora were matured in larger casks made of denser, thicker wood which had more structural integrity, and therefore when you calculate the surface to volume ratio of liquid in the cask, there's simply less losses. That, in my opinion, is why the strength's so high. And also, my opinion, why the integration, the infusion together of the more delicate, dry, slightly astringent spirit with the casks really is, you simply cannot even separate them now. It's a delightful whisky. Now you're wondering, hey Ralphie, are you going to add any water? Well, no, because actually, yes I can. I thought I'd forgotten to bring my water in because I've emptied my jug, but do you know what? There's just enough. This isn't polished, a polished video, for 2 millilitres of water into this whisky. First thing I note, fantastic viscimmetry in the liquor. Last time I tasted this with a friend, I also saw mist appear. This was very, very heartening because this is a Diageo bottling, and Diageo are compulsively, totally, absolutely mega addicted to chill filtering intensely virtually everything they bottle, which is why we don't buy so much these days, because we just don't want downsized drams. So I've got just enough water to add to this. I could get away with not adding any water at all because it is so soft and gentle and slightly sawdusty, and there's just a little bit of complex wood in there. I'm getting a touch of sandalwood. Honey, absolutely. I could start to give you a flavour list here. Nothing dominates, Everything's slight, everything's integrated. It is truly a lovely, lovely dram. But if you care to go back and watch review number 406 now, you'll see that something's changed. My review's changed. Because since 2013, 12 years ago, my palate's moved on. So my palate and your palate for whatever you're drinking keeps evolving over time. And therefore, we approach these sort of bottles with a little bit less worship. Meanwhile, there are people who have them in their collection, or they want to have malt bling, and they're bumping on. Once they've run out of conversation about Macallan, they'll move on to Brewers and Port Ellens and, generational Highland Parks and Bowmores, and it all becomes a little bit vacuous when you're listening into these conversations. So I suggest you don't really hang about with that crowd. They're lovely people, but it gets a little bit of a yawn after a while. I'm just sharing because I care. I've added 2 millilitres of water, got some lovely Fisimetry. It's softened the nose. The nose is sweeter. It's got a little bit more icing, a dusting of icing sugar on it. The barley is prominent, wonderfully aromatic, almost tropical barley. We're talking about rainforest fruits, lychee, guava, papaya, mango. That's the kind of area we're in. And all the while, you have this thing that's missing in modern bottlings of sherried whisky. You have restrained sherry. You have a gradual sherry influence, which tends to come from better prepared casks, which are probably rinsed before they're filled, which is an old-fashioned thing to do in the warehouses, the bottling plant, not the bottling plants, the warehouses and the cooperages, because the coopers have to be in such a rush to get the casks out there that some of the dotting of the I's and crossing of the T's in preparation no longer exists. It depends on the foreman of the coopers. It depends on the policy of the distillery. Times have changed, and when we come to these bottles, we're getting a taste of history. That's the fascination. But we don't have to spend £3,000, and especially, and a word of warning, these are the sort of bottles that get faked. It's worth the money. If you can take a standard, and this is a standard bottle, if you can fake the capsule or steal them from the bottling plant, if you can steal the labels, all you need is one label, peeled, properly scanned, it's not difficult with modern technology. I'm not giving away any secrets or anything like that. I'm just giving you a reality check. Back to the whisky. It's very nicely delicate, and it's not too old. We're getting a little bit of bookcases and leather armchairs, but it's quite restrained. This dram is remarkably fresh, remarkably intact, and remarkably... I've got a butterfly in the bothy and it's just flown by. Anyway, show carries on. I'm having another taste. Adding water brings out a spiritiness that the cask has dampened down. With that spiritiness, it will settle. Give it another half hour. It'll settle down. It'll be absolutely fine. But it brings out a little bit of acetic, a little bit of cask dust, wood shavings. It's part of the animated conversation, which will continue to evolve to evolve for several hours. If you can make your whisky last several hours in the glass. And if you can, pour a second and a third whisky for direct comparisons. But see if you can make this, a whisky like this, of this vintage and venerable status. If you can make it last a couple of hours, you're going to get 4 to 5 times more experience out of it than someone who has guzzled it in less than 15 minutes. So as they could empty the glass, rinse it, and moved on to their next bling bottle because they've got the money to spend. Let's give this a mark. $89 out of 100. It's my malt mark. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you've enjoyed this review. It's a re-review, but it's an antique re-review. You can only do this if the bottle remains sealed and stored properly and left alone. And we can all do this in our stash. And it doesn't need to be Brora. It could be a bottle of Auchentoshan, a bottle of Ardnamurchan. Could be a bottle of Springbank, could be a bottle of Arran, could be a bottle of an independent bottling. Oh, there's some real beauties out there. Go find Maltmates. But it's the self-discipline. But if you have it, you're really, really going to expand your whole experience. And this is what I'm going to come back to in my next review, number 1137, Extras. I'll see you there. Bye-bye.